So how does a single hot dog cart in a kind of rundown park grow up to become a multi-billion-dollar global brand? Well, that is the incredible story of Shake Shack. And today we're going to break down their journey, not just as a cool piece of history, but as a real-world, step-by-step guide for building an amazing business from scratch. So let's dig into the playbook they used.
I mean, just look at the contrast. On one side, you've got the Shake Shack we know today, right? A huge, publicly traded company, hundreds of locations all over the world, a super slick brand with a massive following. But on the other side, that's where it all started. A single, simple hot dog cart. The journey from that to this is just a masterclass in strategy, patience, and how to build a brand people truly love. So to really understand how they pulled it off, we're going to use this universal four-phase framework as our map. First up is validation. That's just proving your idea actually works. Then comes foundation, setting it up for real. After that is building, creating the actual system. And finally, launch and grow, taking it out to the world. Let's see how Shake Shack absolutely nailed every single one of these phases. Now, what's so wild about this story is the founder. This wasn't some hungry entrepreneur in a garage. Danny Meyer was already a legend in New York City's food scene, the guy behind some of the most famous fine dining restaurants. And Shake Shack, get this, it wasn't his grand vision. It was just a little side project. So you gotta ask, why would one of the top chefs in New York even bother with a hot dog cart? And that question brings us right into phase one, validation. But Shake Shack's approach here was so patient, so smart. We're calling it the 3-year MVP. An MVP stands for minimum viable product. To really get the idea, you have to picture New York back in 2001. There were a couple of big problems. First, Madison Square Park was pretty neglected. It needed some new life. And second, the food scene was, well, it was divided. You had fast food, which basically meant cheap and low quality, and then you had street food, like hot dogs, which was just something you grabbed on the go, nothing special. And sitting right in the middle of those two problems was the core insight that changed everything. Danny Meyer asked this really simple question. What would happen if you took all the principles of fine dining, incredible ingredients, amazing service, all that attention to detail, and you applied them to the most humble, basic street food you can imagine? So before we see what he did, let's just lock in this idea of an MVP. It is the absolute simplest, cheapest version of your idea that you can possibly make. And its only job is to answer one question. Will people actually pay for this? It's not about being perfect, it's all about getting proof. Okay, so what was the MVP for a multi-billion-dollar burger empire? It was this, a single unlicensed hot dog cart. They set it up in the park as part of a public art project. I mean, it wasn't even technically a business. It was just a little experiment designed to bring people to the park and test out that core idea. And this wasn't just a random idea. It was a perfect by-the-book execution of the specialty mobile cart business model. The genius part, though, was how they used it. They weren't trying to make millions from day one. They were using it purely as a tool to see if people actually wanted what they were selling. And did it validate the idea? Oh, you better believe it. The cart was a massive, instant hit. The line, it wasn't just a line. It became a thing, a destination, a daily phenomenon in the park. And by running this simple, super low-cost experiment for 3 straight years, they got all the proof they needed. People were hungry for this. The idea was officially validated. Okay, so the idea is a proven winner. What's next? It's time for phases 2 and 3, foundation and building. And for Shake Shack, these kind of happened all at once in what became the single most important pivot in the company's entire history. So after 3 years of the hot dog cart being a huge success, the city came to Meyer's group and asked them to bid on a permanent food kiosk in the park. This was the big moment. Meyer decided it couldn't just be about hot dogs anymore. He pivoted to this much bigger idea, a modern roadside-style burger stand. He literally sketched the whole menu on a napkin, burgers, fries, shakes, and just like that, the Shake Shack brand was born. When that permanent shack finally opened, it created what you might call a success disaster. The line didn't just come back, it exploded. For almost 10 years, this was the average wait time, 1 to 2 hours. Seriously. The line became so legendary that the company just leaned right into it. They launched a Shack Cam, which was a live webcam on their website so you could literally check how long the line was before you left your office. Instead of looking at this huge line as a problem, they turned it into their single greatest marketing tool. Genius. So, with a line that famous, the obvious move is to expand like crazy, right? Open up on every corner? Wrong. What Shake Shack did next was completely counterintuitive. Let's move to phase 4 and see how their super deliberate, patient approach to growth was the real secret to their success. You have to look at this timeline because it's wild. For 5 full years after opening that first kiosk, there was only one Shake Shack in the entire world. Danny Meyer flat out refused to expand. He was terrified it would ruin the quality and the magic. It wasn't until 2009 that they carefully started to test a second and third location, and only after they perfected that formula did they finally hit the gas, which led to their IPO in 2015. So what was that magic formula? Well, it was this 4-part growth flywheel, where each piece pushed the next one forward. It all started with what they called Enlightened Hospitality. That amazing service was amplified by the scarcity created by the line, which then signaled the anti-fast food quality of the product, and the whole machine was protected by their slow, deliberate growth strategy. Let's really focus on that first piece, because it is everything. Enlightened Hospitality. It's Danny Meyer's core philosophy. It's this really radical idea of training your team to treat customers waiting for a burger with the same care and respect you'd expect at a fancy restaurant. Remembering a regular's order, hustling to make things right with a smile. In the world of fast food, that was a complete revolution. And that brings us to the most important point. The real secret to Shake Shack's success. It's not the Shack sauce, it's the culture. Look, anyone can copy a burger recipe, but copying a deep, genuine culture of hospitality that makes people feel seen and valued, one that makes them willing to wait in line, pay a little more, and become fiercely loyal, that is nearly impossible. That culture became their competitive moat. Okay, so let's boil this whole incredible journey down. What are the big, actionable lessons that we can take away from this? What can you actually apply to your own ideas? Here are the 4 big ones. First, a pop-up is the ultimate low-risk way to test your idea. Second, don't be afraid of a line or a wait list. It can be an incredible marketing tool that signals quality. Third, your culture is your most defensible advantage. It's the hardest thing for anyone else to copy. And finally, don't be in a rush to scale. Perfect your model before you even think about replicating it. Which brings us to the final and most critical question, and this one's for you. Forget about building a global empire for just a second. I want you to think like Danny Meyer back in 2001. What is the absolute smallest, simplest, cheapest experiment? What is your personal hot dog cart that you could launch tomorrow to find out if your big idea really has legs?